ever been in a situation where you thought everything was cool with someone and out of nowhere they start sending weird shots your way? That's pretty much what seems to be happening between 50 Cent and Joe Budden right now. It's like one moment they're having a good laugh at a Knicks game, and the next 50's throwing jabs on Instagram that make people wonder if there's something more serious going on. If you've been watching closely, it feels like something's brewing beneath the surface, even though everybody keeps saying it's nothing. But when it comes to 50 Cent, nothing usually means wait and see. The whole situation started picking up heat when 50 began clowning Joe Budden online, specifically about some supposed sleepwalking behavior. And then boom, they run into each other at a Knicks game. Now you'd think if there was tension, this would have been the moment it exploded. But according to Joe, that wasn't the case at all. He says they had a good grown man conversation, squashed whatever might have been lingering, and even joked about the whole thing. 50 even posted a pic of Joe afterward, keeping the same playful tone. Seemed like things were on the up and up. Then enter Fat Joe with his own twist. During a segment on his podcast, he brought up something about Joe Budden seats, a reference to sitting a couple of rows behind the front row at games. Basically not courtside, but close enough. He joked that he couldn't do second row because your enemy might be in the front row. And he flat out said, "We call that the Joe Budden seats." It was clearly a joke, but it had layers, especially because 50 Cent just happened to be front row at the same game Joe was sitting, a few rows back. That timing? Kinda suspicious. Fat Joe later cleared things up and said he was just joking. He said he's launching a new podcast with Jadakiss and name-dropping Joe Budden would help it get attention. That's fair. Joe Budden is one of the biggest names in podcasting. If saying his name boosts your exposure, you'd say it too. And to show there was no beef, Fat Joe even praised Joe Budden publicly, saying they've been cool for over 20 years. He laughed it off, saying they got love for him and that there's no malicious intent. For a second, it felt like the tension bubble popped and everyone could go back to talking about basketball or whatever. But then 50 Cent being 50 Cent came back into the picture like a storm cloud. He posted a video of Joe Budden leaving a Knicks game with his girl. Normal video, nothing scandalous, but it was the caption that turned heads. 50 wrote something like, "Damn, they taking too long to pick you up, bro. Terror Squad, you dead. Leave Joe and Jada alone." That's not exactly playful energy. It sounded more like a warning, or at the very least a weird jab that didn't match the tone everyone else was keeping. At this point, you start to wonder, why is 50 pushing this narrative? Did he not hear Fat Joe say it was all jokes? Or is he just bored and stirring the pot for fun? If you know anything about 50 Cent, you know he's the king of online trolling. He doesn't need a reason to throw shots. He just needs a target. And Joe Budden seems to be his target of the week. Joe's response to all this was calm but sharp. On his podcast, he made it very clear he doesn't see any real beef. He said the internet is not a real place, and he doesn't take online drama seriously unless there's a reason to. He pointed out that he and 50 have known each other for over 2 decades. If there was an actual issue, he'd need more than just some cryptic Instagram captions to believe it. Joe also reminded everyone that fighting a Madison Square Garden isn't even an option. You throw hands at the Garden, you're banned for life. And who's really risking that over a podcast joke? Joe also dropped some interesting points about where he sat at the Knicks game. He said he wasn't there to be seen or make a statement. He bought the seat he wanted, sat with his girl, and watched the game. That's it. He wasn't trying to flex or compete with other celebrities. He wasn't in the comp seats or trying to be buddy-buddy with rappers he doesn't even talk to. He was just being Joe Budden, doing his own thing, standing on his own like he always has. He even addressed the Joe Budden seats comment from Fat Joe. He said he wasn't sure what that meant, but he had too much history with Fat Joe to jump to conclusions. He wanted to wait for Fat Joe to explain it himself. And he added something that hit different. He said maybe the joke is really just about sitting behind someone you make way more money than. That line right there, that was aimed directly at whoever thought they were clowning him. And then he closed it out with a final message. Let's not make this bigger than it is. He said he supports Fat Joe and Jadakiss's new podcast. He respects the game, and he doesn't want this to turn into something it's not. But at the same time, he warned people to watch how they mention his name. Because when you talk about Joe Budden, you're talking about someone who's made a lot of money, built his own lane, and doesn't owe anyone anything. If he's sitting behind you at a game, it's because he chose to, not because he had to. So where does that leave us? You've got Fat Joe saying it's all love, Joe Budden saying he's not sweating it, and 50 Cent, well, he's out here still posting cryptic videos and captions that suggest something more. It could be boredom, it could be trolling, or maybe there's still some old tension that didn't get fully resolved when they met up at the game. Whatever it is, people are paying attention. And that might be exactly what 50 wants. The craziest part of this whole situation is how small it really is, but how big it could get if the wrong move is made. Nobody's throwing punches. Nobody's threatening real violence. It's all jabs, jokes, and online posts. But when you mix egos, history, and public platforms, things can spiral fast, especially in a culture where one misinterpreted joke can turn into a headline. And 50 Cent knows how to work that machine better than almost anyone. If you ask Joe Budden, it's a non-issue. If you ask Fat Joe, it's friendly fire. But if you ask 50 Cent, he might just tell you he's keeping it real, whatever. That means in 2025, what's clear is that Joe Budden isn't playing into the drama. He's keeping it respectful but firm. And if 50 really has something on his chest, maybe it's time to bring him on the podcast and talk it out like grown men. No subliminals, no Instagram captions, just a conversation. Until then, all we can do is watch. And let's be honest, when 50 Cent's involved, watching is half the fun.